If you are someone who is an entrepreneur, who is a business owner, who just works insanely large hours, and I know this story is going to speak to a lot of people because as I'm having one-to-one conversations with people throughout Kickstart, work is a very hot topic, right? Like you hear me, and I love that. This is not a quick fix. If you're here for a magic pill, nope, you're in the wrong spot. This takes time to lock in a skill. And if you're someone who works really crazy long hours, that can be intimidating. Like, Rachel, I don't know that I'm actually going to put in the time and effort to learn this skill. And that is one of the reasons that I love Meredith's story, because she was that person. She was killing herself at work, as she will tell you. And not only was she able to do this, but what she learned here then trickled into her work and affected that in so many ways, which we'll get to. Sarah is here and says, "Hello, Meredith. Before we dive in, let me blow your mind." So on the left was Meredith pre-Ignite. Look at those freaking guns. Look at those triceps. This one's my favorite picture. This is the one that I always use in our advertising. I think because you're rocking the MindStrong shirt. I love it as
Mm,
well. And this one shows the guns as well. There's Meredith before and after. By the way, this is 3 years ago at this point.
yeah,
More than
it's
that?
been,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was June of 2019 when I started working with you.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
if you're
yeah,
worried about sustainability, boom, there it is. Hi, Joe. Joe is here. As you jump on, say hello, let us know you're watching. All right, without further ado, allow me to introduce you to badass entrepreneur, business owner, law firm runner, and my best friend, Meredith Martyr. Welcome, Meredith.
hi.
How's
Thanks for
that for a
having
title?
me.
Law
I love
firm
it.
runner.
Yeah. Law firm runner. I like that because it doesn't require me to do a lot of lawyering. I just
Yeah.
get to run the law firm. That's exactly the point that I'm at. I really love that.
It sounds more relatable than lawyer. She's a law firm runner.
Hmm.
All right, so I'm gonna start. Charlie's gonna start. Um, as you've been hearing, we've been playing a fun little game, these interviews. I mean, yours is a while back. Most people, it's been thinking a year back. When you think back 3 years ago, hey, Audrey, hey, Sue. When you think back 3 years ago, pre Ignite, the Meredith that I jumped on a Zoom on to catch up with after years and years, what's your word? How do you describe your life, your feeling, everything in that moment?
Burned out. I was burned
Wow.
out. I was burned out and exhausted and just beleaguered. I was tired. I was tired and I was ready for a change.
Yeah. Tell us more about that. So, I mean, obviously you were just branching out into your own law
Yeah.
firm. So the burnout makes sense there, but what else was contributing to that?
Yeah, I had been working in a very high powered field, which is not unique. This is not what I'm about to say is not true only in law. This is true in medicine. This is true in academia. This is true in architecture. This is true in healthcare. Like I worked in a field where you worked as many hours as it took to get the job done. And what the job being done looked like was not usually anything that could be accomplished in a reasonable number of hours. You know, it was never ending projects and deadlines and cases. And you were just expected to work evenings and work weekends and give up personal time and work on vacations. And so, you know, and I think that's true again in a lot of fields, not just in law, that, 80-hour work week was the norm, for 10 years of my legal career. When I first started after, I got out of law school, I clerked for a year, and then I was in the big law firm life and working these insane hours. And so food and working out became these interesting outlets for me, where it was like a relief at the end of the day to get home and be able to like unwind. Like when I finally made it home, often after dark, my husband would be waiting for me with a cocktail and he would have made some amazing dinner. And like that was like the reward for finishing this day. Meanwhile, like the first half of the day or like 3/4 of the day, I wasn't eating at all. I wasn't eating enough because I was skipping lunch. I was working through breakfast. I wasn't stopping to make breakfast. Or if I did, I was grabbing a bagel with cream cheese and bacon and egg, like eating like some 1,500 calorie like breakfast sandwich. And so I had just lost any semblance of like, like my body just didn't even know what normal eating looked like, because one day I was asking it to starve because the brief was due, and the next day I was consuming these decadent, amazing meals because I could come up for air. And my husband was like, you know, creating this amazing feast to like celebrate that I was like home before 9
Yes.
p.m., you know? And so it was just really dysregulated. It was, you know, my body just didn't know what to do with that. And so as I came out of that at the end of 10 years of doing that, and add on top of that, all of the actual mental, emotional stress, all of the expectations of perfectionism, the incredibly high standards that we're held to in, again, in that industry, in the legal industry, and in a lot of industries. All of that had just left me exhausted. I had been just running myself ragged, not taking good care of my body. I'd gone through periods of working out as stress relief. So I'd had periods of like intense physical fitness where I did CrossFit for a few years and I did Muay Thai for a few years. So I was like moving still in and out of that, but my nutrition was just, I mean, my metabolism was just like, lady, can you make up your mind? Are we dying today or are we on vacation? Like we literally can't tell from one day to the next.
I love that. That's so funny.
So I was heavy. I was the heaviest I'd been in my life, like, which fortunately for me, you know, my tolerance, like I like got to this point and that wasn't, I didn't have as much weight to lose as other people did. I was fortunate in that way that I think the fitness had kept it a little bit in check. But I was still, you know, heavier than I'd ever been, wearing bigger sizes than I'd ever worn. And I got to the end of those 10 years and had a major life change where a family member passed away. And it was like a huge wake up call for me that I was just like, what am I doing? Like, what am I actually doing? What is the plan here? I don't actually want to be a partner in this law firm and continue living my life this way. Like the partners don't need any better than I did. You know, they didn't feel any better. They didn't have any more energy. They were burnt out too. And I said, this isn't what I want for myself. And so that was the point that I made the change of leaving the law firm and going out on my own. And that was the point that I finally reached out to you.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? We talked about in Kickstart this week that for a lot of people, it takes that major life event. Like, you know, my story that I lost one of my best friends, yours was a family member. And man, that just makes you want to like yell from the rooftops. Like you don't need trauma for a wake up call, right? Be your own wake up call and call and spare yourself that expense. But it's interesting how our stories are similar that way. So you and I, a lot of people, we have a lot of new members here, so they don't know this. Meredith and I actually went to high school together. We went to a performing arts high school and we lost touch for 20 freaking years. Like, how are we old enough to have lost touch for 20 years?
That seems insane. I know.
So she reached out to me. We had been Facebook friends. We, you know, liked each other's comments, but like weren't in each other's lives in any way, shape, or form. And Meredith reached out to me for the premise of a MindStrong. Like, I'm super curious what you're doing. What's this business you started? And that's how we became best friends, was through the business. But I'm curious, you were going out on your own. You were starting your own law firm. That is no small feat. That is a large undertaking. What did it feel like when you started learning about macros and this skill that we teach? Were there any thoughts of like, am I nuts for learning a new skill while I'm building a new business?
Well, so probably, I mean, yes, like the idea of like adding new things to the plate is like on the outside sounds crazy. But it was so beneficial for two reasons. Well, two primary reasons. One, and you've heard me say this before, it saves you so much time. I mean, learning this skill saves you more time than any other business lifestyle hack you could possibly come up with. The amount of time that it actually frees up. But you don't know this at the beginning. Like, you don't know this going into it, that this is true. You're just going to have to like take my word for it and all the other interviewees' words for it. But like, this is the biggest time saver you could ever learn, implement, or do in your life. So that was like a big thing, like tracking macros and no longer having to worry about what I was eating, thinking about what I was eating, feeling guilty about what I was or wasn't eating, or was it enough, or feeling crappy about my body. All of that time I got back. But at the beginning, not knowing that, I actually think that there was something about macros for me that was a relief, because I finally had control in this area of my life at a time when I felt really out of control of the business stuff. And so it was like, I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if my law firm is going to be successful or not. Like, I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to do my best. but like, I don't actually have a crystal ball to know is my law firm, how my law firm is going to do in year one, in month 6, you know? And so I actually think there was something really perfect about finding macro tracking at that time, because it allowed me to take control of my health, my nutrition, my food, and just radically like change that relationship. So that relationship suddenly felt really solid, while my relationship with my income and my business was feeling less solid.
Oh, I love that, because for one of the things that I love to celebrate, that sometimes when people join Ignite and they start locking in the skill, we kind of gloss over this. And this is the moment where I'm like, pause, let's just review what was said out loud. Because for most of us, food is the area of our life that we feel the most out of control. And what tends to happen once people get the skill locked in is exactly what you just described. Like something happens at work or something happens in a personal relationship and life just gets out of control. And when people come back to us and say, I have been so spot on with my macros right now because it is anchoring me, it is my anchor in life. And that's like, wait a second. So the thing that used to be the most out of control relationship in your life is now your anchor. And
Yeah.
what a 180 from where we used to be with this.
Yes. And in the diet culture and the culture that we have grown up in, you know, the people our age have seen, and the women older than us have seen, the messaging around women and eating and our bodies and nutrition. We're not supposed to be in control of that. They want us confused. It is also a radical statement to say food and nutrition is something I feel completely confident about and in control of, and I understand it. I don't need to buy another single diet book in my entire life. I will never need one ever again. They don't want us to know. They don't want us to figure this out. Like that is why your business is so industry disrupting, because you teach us the actual skill and the actual math and science behind it, so that we don't actually need you or them anymore. Like, you would have a better, more lucrative business model if we somehow needed to keep buying your shakes every month, right? Like,
Damn
that
it.
would in theory make you more money, because you didn't tell us the truth. You didn't tell us how to actually do it. But instead, bless you, the teacher in you is like, no, I'm just going to teach you what the truth is here. So you guys can just like go do it on your own when you're ready. And, you know, here I am 3 years later. I haven't paid you as my coach in, 2 years. And I've kept the weight off. I'm still in the best shape of my life. And I just messaged you this weekend. I just got back from a 7-week road trip. My first day tracking, I took 2 months off from tracking. And my first day back, I like input what I wanted to eat. I nailed it. And I'm just like, yes, like, that's what happens when you learn the skill. It's like you come back after 2 months away, you like look in the fridge, you're like, boom, boom, boom. I got my whole day planned, hit it perfectly.
Yep. I love that term, industry disruptive, by the way. I just wrote that down. I'm like, that's a keeper. And it's so funny what you're saying, because obviously Meredith's my best friend. Her law firm represents MindStrong. And we joke all the time. We have strategy meetings. We talk business all the time. And the running joke is that I have the worst business model in the world because you only need us once, right? Like you used our services a year ago and you come, you hang out because it's great to be around like-minded people. But why would you ever re-enroll? Like you have the skill. If you want to hang out, that's one thing, but you have what you need for life. It's an education.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you just said about your road trip. Oh wait, that would be amazing to not be buying more crazy diet books, Joe says.
Right. You literally never have to spend another dime on it. You don't even have to click on any of the news articles or the posts in social media about diet stuff. And it actually only takes a little while for that to filter out of the algorithm. So I just like literally don't even see anything about diets anymore in my life. It's not in my life. My like social media knows I'm not interested in it. It shows me every post from MindStrong, but it shows me mindset stuff. It does not show me any health or fitness nonsense, period. It's out of my life.
Yeah. Unless you go the other way to click on them to laugh at what a gimmick you now recognize.
Right. Yes. I think you and Amy indulge in like hating them and being appalled by them. And so you guys get more of them. And I'm just like, what ads? I don't see any. They know I'm not buying their shakes. They stopped paying for it to market to me. They figured it out. I'm not buying.
Yeah. Amy, who you guys heard from, one of our coaches who lost 110 pounds, she mentioned we all live in the same state. Meredith lives in the same city, Tucson. And But Amy's thing is she loves to click on those ads and show me like the latest BS in the industry. And then we have a good laugh over it. But then I'm like, you're going to get more of these now. Audrey, I see your question and I want to come back to that because Amy says hi, she's on here now. So Audrey's question is, can you do this without pre-planning everything other than on vacation? And I want to come back to that in a second, because I want to talk about, you just mentioned that you were on a 7-week road trip, and you are such a living, breathing example of your future self. And here's what I mean by that. One of the big questions we get from people is, do I have to track my food forever? Like once I start doing this, is this a forever thing? And what we explain is that it is totally your call. Like it depends on your personality, on your level of control. Someone like me, I love I call it the knobs, right? Like the level of control that I have over those knobs, I can't imagine not tracking. For someone like you, I think you've stepped into the fluidity more of what it can mean to take macros into intuitive eating. So can you talk about how you utilize that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I didn't get to this point for about a year. I spent about a year pretty strictly tracking macros. I took some vacations, I took some days off, holidays, birthdays, things like that. So what I'm about to talk about, I would say I've been in for like 2 years, right? So it took me about a year to really, really lock in the skill, and not just lock in the skill, but lock in what it felt like in my body to be hitting my macros, like what it feels like when I hit my protein, what it feels like when I've fueled my body with enough carbs.
And
right?
I just want to interject and be clear. Meredith knew how to hit within her goal range of her macros within a couple of weeks. What she's talking about took a year was exactly this. Like, what does it feel like to have enough protein?
Yeah. Really understanding what it felt like to eat and what those portions look like, right? Like I had a really good idea. I'd been making a lot of the same dinners at that point for a year. I'd been making a lot of the same lunches for a year. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I want to see what this looks like. If I've already hit my weight loss goals, I surpassed my weight loss goal. I lost more weight than I expected to. My body shape changed. Like my body was I just didn't know this body was underneath here, honestly. So I found it. And then, but then it was like, okay, my goal is no longer weight loss, right? Like now I have other lifestyle goals. And so I've experimented with not tracking. And what I've discovered is that in retraining my metabolism so well, so effectively, the way that we do it so incrementally, my metabolism is down for some fluctuation. Like it can hang and know, like we're still on the program. We're never getting off this program. We're always going to eat this way. And so cool, like go on vacation, do what you want. Like, yeah, let's have a little more fat today. Like, let's not track, like, let's see what happens. And I also, in taking those experiments, got to feel what it was like to not hit my numbers and what it feels like when I don't have my protein. And honest to goodness, the thing that brings me back every single time is I want the energy. I just don't have as much energy when I'm not tracking. I will not naturally hit my protein number. Like I just won't. I'm a vegan now, and I actually want to talk about that a little bit, but I just won't hit unless I'm tracking and I'm actually counting it. I will never naturally be like, I'm going to have another shake. I'm going to have another bar. Give me more tofu. Like that's just not, nobody wants more tofu. Like that's not a thing. So, what happens is inevitably I start to feel the shifts in my body of not feeling as energized, not feeling as alert, not feeling as clear. And as soon as that happens, even if I feel like overly sad or overly depressed, I've started to associate any sort of like mental confusion or mental frustration. The very first thing I check in with myself about is where's my nutrition? When was the last day I tracked? Wow. And if I'm feeling down, the first thing I try is literally tracking for a week. I just get back on. I get right back on. I plan the rest of the day, or I input what I've already eaten that day. I start tracking right then. I track the next day, track for 5-7 days. And by the end of those 7 days, I've got all the info I need to figure out what's really going on here under the surface. And now I'm in the mental headspace to solve
it. That's amazing. And that is one of my favorite, when we hear people say, I can't wait to get back to my macros. Like that's when we know that your body has locked this in. When you take that time off and you're like, it's not a should, it's not a have to, it's get me back to my macros, because that's when I feel my best. It's like, yes, your body we're pleasure seeking creatures. It is craving what makes it feel good.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
and it felt really good for 7 weeks to not worry about it. Like while I was camping and traveling all over the country and visiting with friends and attending conferences and all of that, like I brought my scale, I had the option to track, and I didn't end up doing it. And I didn't spend a single day worrying about it or stressing about it. And when I got back, I weighed the exact same as I did when I left.
yeah. Yeah. I remember also when you were fairly early on in the program, the first time you went on vacation, and we did all the mindset work around not tracking, we mentally prepared, and then you had to give the punchline of what happened.
I lost weight. I got back from a week in Cabo, drinking tequila, mezcal, eating guacamole and fish tacos. And I had dropped like 3 pounds or something like that. And I was just like, oh, this is how we're going to go? Like, oh, this is what's possible?
Take my money. Take my money.
Okay.
Amazing. Joe, can't wait to hear your vegan story. But before we get to that, I want to answer Audrey's question. So I laughed at that. Can you do this without pre-planning? Because you're asking the worst person in the world for that. Said with love. The answer is 100% yes. The only time I pre-plan is if I know I'm going out to dinner that night. Like if I know I'm going to have pizza, I put it in the morning, I pre-plan. Other than that, to me, my personality, my brain, pre-planning is way too much work. I'm going to track as the day goes on. I'm going to take a minute and a half on my way home from the gym and figure out how I'm going to clear out my macros for the night. Meredith is the polar opposite of that. Meredith and Amy, I think I mentioned this in Amy's interview, are two of the biggest planners that I know. In fact, you heard a bunch of people reference anchor meals. That is Meredith's term. She is, we have trademarked that term in MindStrong, not literally, but thanks to Meredith's term. Do you want to talk about pre-planning at all? How that helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I really love the nerdy game of Tetris. Like it's really fun for me to plan. Like once you get over the like frustration of learning the new skill, in the beginning, it always sucks when you're not good at something, it's not as much fun to do it. But just like Sudoku isn't fun until you figure out how to play Sudoku. And then you're like, ooh, this is really fun. Like it's the same. It's like, that's why we call it the nerdy game of Tetris. So once I locked in the skill itself, it really became enjoyable for me to actually plan the next day's meal. And it saved me so much time. And so I would sit on the couch at night watching TV, and I'd look in the, like before I sat down, I'd look in the fridge and kind of like mentally survey, oh, I have those leftovers and I have that, whatever, defrosted, like, okay, I got this and this, like I kind of get an idea of what's there. And then I would sit down and I would start plugging in what I wanted to eat the next day. And I'd have it all figured out. And the next morning, the only thing I had to do was wake up and like open my app and be like, oh yeah, I'm having a bagel and cream cheese today. Yeah, like sweet, and then at lunch, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm having a turkey wrap, like sweet, And so it allowed me to just like completely offload this mental stress of like thinking about what to eat at each meal of the day, which was taking up so much time in my workday that I would skip meals. Like this is why I would skip meals when I was at the law firm, is stopping to think about what I want and making it appear was just too much work. So I love pre-planning for that because it just made my work days go smoother. And I really enjoyed sitting on the couch while watching television, like planning it out. But the way that I started planning it, and this is where anchor meals come in, is I would think about what is the meal I'm most excited about tomorrow. And if I was going out to lunch with a friend, it might be lunch, right? Like I know I'm going to this restaurant. I'm going to look at their menu. I'm going to pick what I'm going to eat first and plug that in. Or a lot of times it was dinner. Like I'm a dinner person. I don't care as much about breakfast and lunch. Dinner is like my bigger meal of the day. And so it'd be like, ooh, I really want to have, that blah, blah, blah pasta dish tomorrow night. And so I'd plug in that pasta dish. And that would be what I called my anchor meal. And so every day I would sort of start planning and this is still true today, I kind of start with whatever I want my most significant anchor meal to be. And then I plug that in first. And then if I end up, usually like my bedtime snack is like where the random stuff ends up. And so sometimes my bedtime snack is like a protein shake with water because I did not save enough calories for anything other than protein powder and water. And those are the days I don't like. I'm like, you didn't do a very good job today, Meredith. Like you could have planned this better.
Past Meredith.
But But if I plan in advance, I can look at that and be like, oh, I am not going to want protein powder and water before I go to bed tonight. Like, I'm going to rearrange this. I don't really want the sausage with my breakfast. So I'm going to give up that fat and I'm going to add, oat milk over here, make my shake more exciting. Like, I can do those swaps when I pre-plan it so that I've got this entire day of eating planned out that I'm genuinely excited about. And that's the other reason for me to pre-plan is I eat a much wider variety than Rachel. My food has a lot more vegetables in it, just for the record. She does not eat vegetables. And and I have like all of this culinary variety in my life because I have the space and I'm able to do that and still hit my macros perfectly because I take the time in advance to pre-plan it. So I can adjust in advance, like, oh, I'm going to have a little bit less beans at lunch because I need a little bit more rice at dinner or whatever it is.
Yeah. I have to tell you too, like there's people, they're dropping the laughing emojis about that one of the things I love about this community is having people who speak this macro language with you is so next level. And I thought of that because when I just moved to Tucson, a little over a year ago. And when I moved here and Meredith and her husband saw how boring I ate, not only did they cook for me, but because they speak this language, it was like, hey, we're making so-and-so for dinner. Let me send you the macros so you can plug it in. Early, I'm like, everyone needs friends like that. To Meredith's point about anchor meals, by the way, it doesn't have to be breakfast or lunch. Like, because I'm not, the best eater in the world, like I do it for dessert. I remember once on Instagram, I saw someone make a Kodiak waffle with Halo Top ice cream. And I was just like, yeah, go for it. I was just like, holy crap, I need that in my life. So I figured out what the macros would be on it. And that became my anchor meal. Like then I plugged it in for the next day, which I never do. I do not pre-plan, but I plugged that into my app and my entire night/next morning was all about this amazing dessert that I had used as an anchor meal and fit into my macros. So Meredith uses it for dinner because they make really gourmet meals that I benefit from since moving to Tucson. But that absolutely does not have to be the case. It can be whatever your preference is. I tried to put this on speaker view and it's just showing me. When tracking macros, doesn't matter how many calories. So Sue, if you remember from, I forget what day it was, I think day 2, your macros are your total calories. So we call it the nerdy math. There's some math where I won't get into the whole thing right now, but your macros equal your total calories. Macro tracking is like calorie counting. I don't even call it 2.0. I call it like 1.2, like a slight step above. Yeah, Jenny says if you hit your macros, you'll reach your calories. So this is a bigger conversation we'll have inside Ignite. The ultimate goal with macros is to get within 1 to 3 grams of each macro each day. When you do that, you are hitting your caloric goal. And inside Ignite, we get into some of the intricacies of that because these apps can be confusing. But the blanket statement is your macros equal your total calories. When you're hitting them, you are hitting your macros. All right, I want to get into the vegan thing. This is humorous to me because I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think you started the vegan thing because I was doing the vegan thing and you saw how good I felt. Then I stopped doing the vegan thing and Meredith is still doing the vegan thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so sorry I had to step away. Of course, the pool guy that's coming today for the first time ever, who was supposed to call me and tell me before he came, shows up halfway through this interview and is like going in my yard with my dogs. And he's like, anyway, sorry. I had to deal with that. There's literally a man Halo Top on my front. I heard the whole thing. I apologize. I had to step away. That was like very unavoidable. Okay, so yeah. And this is something that the reason I want to talk about this is just, I think it's really amazing that macros enabled me to do something that had been a long time goal. And here's what I mean. So when I started this, I was eating everything, eating dairy, eating meat, chicken, everything. And so I lost the majority of the weight, I would say. Well, I guess between like June and November, I lost a lot of weight eating everything, like even before I was vegan. And so I don't want anybody to think you have to be vegan or being vegan makes any difference in how this works. It does not at all. So I had already seen a lot of success, but then you were eating vegan. And I was like, wow, I've always So I went vegetarian in September 2001. I always remember that date. It was September 12th because I'd seen a PETA ad at my college campus, and I was like, oh my God, I have to stop eating animals. And I was like, tomorrow I'm going to stop eating animals. And I woke up, it was September 11th, 2001. I went to did not eat any animals at breakfast. I went to Spanish class. We found the planes hit the World Trade Centers, and I was like, well, if the world is ending, I'm going to go have a corned beef sandwich. Like, this is not the day to become vegetarian. Yeah. Like, obviously the world is actually ending right now. This is not the day to start a new diet.
Priorities,
so
yeah.
The next day when we survived that night, I started vegetarianism, and I was so sick. In the year and a half, almost 2 years that I was vegetarian, I ate terribly. I ate like mac and cheese and cheese pizza. I had no protein at all in my diet. I mean, I was a college student, like eating in a dorm. So it was like, pasta and just dairy and carbs. Like that was all it was.
French fries are vegetarian.
Yeah, French fries are totally vegetarian. Get your favorite sub sandwich, but without any meat. Just get the cheese and add the guacamole and Anyway, so I ate so terribly, and I had no protein in my diet, and I was so sick. And so at the end of about a year and a half or 2 years of being really sick, of having health issues, I went to a naturopath, and she was like, look, I'm as groovy as the next chick, but like, can you just like go have some meat and like, let me know how it goes? And so I had some meat, and my body was like, oh, thank God, protein. And I felt so much better. And for 20 years after that, or almost 20 years, I guess it would be 18, I believed that I had to eat meat in order to get enough protein to have enough energy. And I mistakenly believed that for almost 20 years. But the morals, like the ethics of not eating animals, had always stuck with me. And it always made me sad that didn't feel like an option for me, because I thought I had to eat meat in order to get enough protein. And when you taught me the skill of macros, and I knew what it felt like to actually get enough protein, all of a sudden, so much more was possible, because now I could actually experiment with not having animal protein, and I knew how to track my protein, and I could actually get enough. And so you and I jokingly call it the vegan experiment, because it's not to say I'll never have a burger again. It's not to say I'll never have a piece of chicken again. I do eat fish occasionally. I make exceptions and have sushi. We go out to sushi often. But I have been able to maintain these energy levels for almost 3 years now without eating animal protein as a major part of my diet, or hardly any, with the exception of some occasional fish, any part of my diet. And that has only been true because of tracking macros.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, the term experiment is so important in this, because if we were to back up further, the reason we called this a vegan experiment is, for me, it was when I started this, I wonder what it would feel like if I I was eating a lot of Greek yogurt. I wonder if I could cut out some Greek yogurt. Oh, I feel really good. I wonder what happened if I did this. And it was supposed to be, if you remember way back then, it was supposed to be a month-long experiment. And I just felt so good that I kept it going for 3 years. And then you saw it was possible, so you kept it going. In my case, I was out to dinner with Simone one night, and I'd been with partners who weren't vegan before, had nothing to do with that. I was like, I think I want a steak. And I just jumped full in and had a steak, and that was the end of the vegan experiment. But I think there's a power in that curiosity that you mentioned. And that becomes such a bigger statement when you're learning to track macros, and it's frustrating, right? Like you said, nobody likes to suck at something in the beginning. It doesn't feel good. Yeah. And the more, just like the vegan experiment, the more we can say, interesting, I did not realize that I'm going over fat every day. I wonder what would happen if I swap this food for this food, right? If you are a pre-planner like Meredith, and you're like, interesting, if I have that sausage at breakfast, it only leaves me with the protein shake before bed. I wonder what would happen if I swap this. And, the vegan thing is just such a #bigger life statement for that power of curiosity and just following what feels good.
Yeah. And I think, and that's true for so many people. We heard the reverse of that in Kim's interview, right? That for Kim, she started getting curious about new food, and knowing that macros gave her the sort of control over her food to start saying, well, maybe I should try sweet potato. Oh, damn, these are pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I think for all, for me, it happened to be veganism because that was something that I had been curious about for moral and ethical and environmental reasons for a long time. And I'm so excited, I just didn't believe it was possible for my body because hadn't understood the math and science of how protein works and how macros work. And that just unlocked so many more things for me. And I think for anybody else, it can be, any other experiment. If you want to try cutting out gluten, or you want to try adding back in gluten, whatever it is that whatever you want to play with, all of that gets to be possible because this isn't a restrictive diet where you're telling us which foods are good or which foods are bad.
Yeah, you've got your numbers. You want to cut out dairy, you want to add in dairy, like go for it. This is the time to play, because at the end of the day, your body's going to be fueled properly. So why not experiment? All right, I want to switch gears. One of my favorite Meredith stories of all time. It's actually happened quite a few times, but it's the same blanket story. In my book. So I have a book out, Becoming MindStrong, on Amazon, and one of the chapters is Meredith's favorite chapter. It's the chapter on fear. And to this day, this is why that community is so important. Having people speaking the same language. To this day, whenever my business, MindStrong, goes through a major transition, Meredith is the person that I call. She's my best friend. She's my business best friend. Like we strategize. And 9 times out of 10, her response to me is, I'm going to suggest that you read this chapter of this really good book that I read. And she literally throws my own book back in my face when I am letting fear run the show. And it's a conversation that we often have that, I said it earlier today in Leanne's interview, new level, new devil, right? As you level up, fear's always going to creep in. It's going to look in different things. And I know you've talked a lot about the same tools you learned in taking control of your health and learning to track macros have played such a major role. Not only, it influenced starting your own law firm, but now you've got other businesses going, you were getting more visible. Can you talk about how those two things bled into each other?
I'd be happy to. This is my favorite thing to talk about. I'm so happy you asked.
Kim says it always surprises me how the little shifts make the most incredible change. Oh, I love that Kim's watching. Hi, Kim.
So yes, the conversation around fear is, for me, Leanne talked about how for her it was the all in, all out mindset. That was the big aha for her. I think for me, the biggest mindset aha was what fear really is. And when you teach us in chapter 6, this is a spoiler alert, but you still have to read the book because she's funnier in the book. When you explain that fear is just our caveman brain telling us we're doing something new, something that there isn't an index for, we don't have a lived experience of how this goes, then our brain's job, literally to keep us safe, is to go, stop, don't do that. This is dangerous. You're going to die. Mm. And when you taught me that, I was like, oh shit, I have been listening to the wrong internal indicators this whole time, right? Like, what? I mistakenly thought fear meant slow down. I love new things. I absolutely love new things. Fear means full steam ahead. Within reason, there has to be safe. Like, that's the lawyer in me. Like, I'll do it safely and smartly and efficiently. Right. But like, I love new things. I love trying new things. And so now when I come up against fear, I actually get really excited because it tells me I'm leveling up. It tells me I'm pushing on an edge. It tells me I'm at the edge of whatever comes next, whatever this next new experiment is. And so it's really, really changed how it feels to stretch and expand. And that has had massive ramifications in every part of my life, in my personal relationships, in my fitness, in my nutrition, in my business. And what it has meant is I can go for things and the fear is going to be there because it means my brain's doing its job of telling me that this is something new. And I can say, thank you so much, fear. Like, hop on in. We're going.
Let's go.
We're going for a ride. Like, get in. Like, this is happening. And so that, to talk about, we started by talking about the control I have over this area of my life, right? Like, that also increases your tolerance for fear in other areas. That, like, I don't spend any time feeling fearful about my body or fearful about my health or fearful, like, I don't know that I felt fear around it as much as like other things like shame or just dislike or disempowered, but like all that's cleared up And now when I go, like, I got all this energy, I got all this time back. And now I'm like, ooh, what can I do next? And like fear pops up. I'm like, oh, hey, bud, like, let's go. Like, we're going to go do this. And so, yeah, so I started like 3 businesses. There's like 5 other ones waiting in the wings. Like my biggest problem is like, which thing am I going to focus my energy on today? My law firm doubled in business. That, you know, I hired you in the first 6 months of owning my law firm, and year 2 I doubled business. Year 3 I tripled it. You know, I mean, business is good. Like, I am showing up with energy, with purpose. You know, to hear Leanne talk about how fired up she is in her business, like, that's what I got back.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love, it wasn't planned that you and Leanne were on the same day because of the business thing, but it's so true. We've talked endlessly this week in Kickstart about science shows, this is a scientific fact, that energy cannot be destroyed. It only changes form. So we've talked a lot in Leanne's interview, but we can't compartmentalize. We are human. So as she's gaining control of her nutrition, as she's retraining that inner monologue, of course she's getting relit up for her business. And as you're doing the fear work, as you're re-identifying what your caveman brain means, like, of course your business is doubling and tripling and you're starting 27 other businesses because once it's like the diet industry, once you see it, you can't unsee it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I talk about this because Meredith's my best friend and we have these conversations all the time. But that's what I love about this Ignite community is we can't unsee what fear actually is. So now we get to have the conversations of, hey man, I am scared shitless. And the answer is awesome. That means you're leveling up, right? That means you're doing something that you've never done before. And you get this whole community who's not just saying that to pump you up. They're saying it because they know it's capital T truth. And watching you put that into play is just, it's such an inspiring thing, not only as your coach, but as your friend, because this is life. This is not just nutrition. This is life.
Yeah. And we see this, you know, for people like me who've been in the MindStrong community for 3 years now. I've seen so many people have success. Like, my mom's done the program, my sister-in-law's done the program. I've seen so many friends go through the program. My cousins are in the program, right? Like, and I've seen all these other people come through the program who I didn't personally know. And it never surprises me when someone's posting that they just got a promotion, or they just, you know, like, someone passed a licensure exam. Someone, you know, Amy was talking about the fact she wouldn't have even applied for the major promotion she got at work, right? Like, Kim was talking about how her boss was seeing all of the improvement. Like, that's what happens when you do this work. Like, as someone who's been here watching the success, you know, experiencing the success and watching the success in the MindStrong family, like, yeah, like, yes, the weight loss is huge. It is huge. It's where we start. We start there for a reason, but like, that is just the first change. And then you level up in your relationships. And then all of a sudden your kids and your family is going with you to the gym, like Sherry. And then you change jobs and you leave that career that was sucking you down for the thing you always wanted to do, or you get relit up about your businesses. Like, that is actually the transformation you're getting when you learn this skill and you do this work. And the weight loss is just like, that's like the teaser. It's like it's like the lead magnet at the grocery store. You know, it's like the weight loss is like the sale flyer that gets you to go into the grocery store. Like, you're here for so much more.
Yeah. I mean, that's something we've said so many times this week. I love that you just said that. We're like, the way you don't believe it yet, and that's okay. Weight loss,
nobody does in the first start. Yeah.
Right. For us, we're like, oh yeah, of course you're going to lose weight. It's math and science. That's a given. Let's do the fun part. Let's do the life stuff, because that's what we're really here to do. We just don't know it yet. Those of us who have been through it know it, but buckle in. Yeah. Kim has a great line. Kim said, the same energy to invest in fear. It's the same energy to invest in fear as it is to invest in possibility. I love that. Mm-hmm. All right. So here's my final question for you. We started this conversation and you were burned out. You were all work, zero Meredith time. You know, your metabolism was like, I love it. Are we starving today? Are we going on vacation today?
Right.
3 years later, your journey. I mean, what I love about your journey is when people say, will it actually stick? Like, she's not only running a law firm, she's starting 27 other businesses. Yes, it sticks. What's your word now?
Energized.
Oh, good one.
Yeah. I'm energized, and I I have so much energy, and I also, because of the mindset work, have the appreciation for how valuable and important I am and my energy is. And so I not only have more energy and have freed up more energy in my life, but I am now picky as hell about who and where I spend it.
Yes. Yes.
And that has led to all, that has been part of all the other level ups, right? That now that I've got this energy, I get to decide where and when I spend it, and I come first. For all the reasons all of the other interviewees have said, like, this is my energy, and I get to decide when I'm giving it away, when I'm refocusing on myself, when I'm focusing on my businesses, and how I get to show up in my relationships across the board, business and personal. And that freedom, that sovereignty,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible.
We could have a 2-hour talk on what this does for boundaries, for people who are scared of boundaries, people who feel uncomfortable. When you start understanding what Leanne so beautifully said today, that it is selfish not to take care of yourself, you become a living, breathing, inspirational example of why we need boundaries. I love that. And that's all energy. That is all energy. Kim's laughing at starving her vacay. Very relatable. I love it. I'm going to tag you in the comments if that's okay with you. So I'm going to tag Meredith. If you're watching the replay, give us a hashtag replay. If you have a question specifically for Meredith, like you want to know more about her journey, or she is the queen of Anchor Meals pre-planning, she can answer that better than I do. Feel free to tag her and ask her questions directly. Meredith, I freaking love you, not just because you're my best friend, but we call Meredith the walking billboard for MindStrong. She's 3 years and counting. It's not going anywhere. At this point, like she said, we've helped her mom, we've helped her family. Like, name them, it's like the 7 degrees of Meredith Martyr inside Ignite.
And that is one of the other, wait, can I just say, that is one of the other amazing benefits, is when you start doing this work and putting yourself first and doing this work for yourself, all the people you love start putting themselves first. So you model that for them. And so the other amazing things that have happened in my life is my mom's in the best shape of her life. And my friends are in the best shape of their life. And I am so incredibly proud to watch my friend Amy's journey. You know, like, I now get to see my friends' lives transformed because I took a chance on hiring Rachel, and now I get to talk about it and share it with the other people in my life. And so the other really cool thing, you know, hearing from like Leanne and Dory and Kim, who are all friends in KC, like, they all get to hang out with each other, and their friends are now like in the best shape of their life, lit up, energized. Like, your friends get more fun. Like, that is one of the benefits. Like,
and they cook for you and do your macros.
Yeah. Your mom is happier and healthier, and your friends are happier and healthier. And like, that has only taken, that has taken more time to come to fruition, because it takes everybody a while on their journey. But that is one of the amazing benefits of being 3 years in, is that I get to be so proud watching my cousins, Toby and Cindy, rock this, and cheering them on and seeing the changes in their lives. And that is like almost better than any of the feelings of like my own transformation, is getting to watch people that I love go through their own.
Yeah, I love that too, because we spend so much time this week talking about generational health, but the trickle down isn't just down, right? Just Toby that Meredith just mentioned, she's 75 years young and she's in the best shape of her life, right? Meredith's mom's in her late 60s. She's in the best. When we talk about generational health, this is not just down. This is around you. This is your friends. This is your spouse. This is your family. You're never going to force them to do it, right? It's funny. One of the biggest things, and I know you've experienced this, people who learn this are like, I want to go to the supermarket and hand out flyers and shove this down people's throats. And it's like, it's not going to work. Just do you, boo-boo. Like, live it, lead by example. And because we're pleasure seeking creatures, your family, your friends, your loved ones are naturally going to say, I want to drink whatever Kool-Aid she's drinking, like, get me on that. And you've just done that so beautifully. You've led by example. So thank you for sharing every time we do this, I leave feeling inspired by just the person you are and the work you've done and how it shows up in your life. So thank you.
I think you mean you leave feeling inspired by the reflection of what your business creates in the world.
Oh, I love you.
This is all a reflection of you, my friend, and your amazing work and your amazing business. It's true though. I mean, I had to put in the work, right? We all have to put in our own work, but this is absolutely a testament to the amazing business you built and the way that you approach this as a teacher. everybody has said it, it's life changing.